Help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also, hit that like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content.
Hey, what's up, and welcome to QnA, the show where I take your questions and answer them here in video format. Ton of questions to get into, so let's just jump into it. First question comes from Noah Meyer, who says, hey, Q, now that things are slower at this point in the offseason, I was wondering, what is your favorite Browns team of all time and why? For me, I think my favorite Browns team is 2007 because that is what I was like 13, 12 years old. And it was like the first Browns team that legitimately was good in my lifetime, right? I was born in 1995. Obviously, the team moved in 1995. So 95 to 99. No football, right? And I'm 4 years old, so I don't even really know. And then, you get those first like 7 years of the Browns, 6 years of the Browns, and they're not very good. This is the first time I experienced like the city getting excited about the Cleveland Browns. The Browns might make the playoffs. You had, at the time, young, exciting players in the receiving core of that team, right? Like it seemed like the place to be was in Cleveland. And like 07 was like an interesting time in Ohio sports. Like that 06, 07, those 2 years were very interesting. Ohio State, who was still like very heavily recruiting players from the city of Cleveland. So at that time, to me at least, it felt like Ohio State was like an extension of like rooting for Cleveland because all the Glenville guys that they had there. So I was really big into Ohio State at that time. And that was like at the tail end of that peak, right? I think it really was like 04, 05, 06. And then you got a little bit in 07 was that peak Ohio State, Glenville era of Buckeye football, but it was still going on in 06 and 07. And then obviously Ohio State, I think they went to the national championship game in 06. 07, I think they played in the Fiesta Bowl versus Notre Dame. And then there was I think 08, they went back to the national championship, got smacked by LSU. But that was like Ohio State was good. The Guardians at the time were pretty good. It was like Falstall Carmona. I think we just got rid of CC, but we still had like Cliff Lee and Jake Westbrook and the Wicker Man as the closer. And I think Kenny Lofton was on that. Was Kenny Lofton on that Guardians team? Yeah, I think Kenny Lofton was there. 07 was like where it pretty much locked me in as a Cleveland sports fan. And then obviously LeBron James in 2007 was doing his thing as well, right? Like those 2 years are like, oh man, this is what it's like when the teams are good. Like this is what it's all about. And you chase that feeling. So I would say, because of all of those things, all that nostalgia combined, right? The first successful Cleveland teams of my lifetime, I think, for the most part, like all three of them, right? Like I think the Guardians had some success in 04. I remember Coco Crisp and all of that. People get excited about it, but and then I think the Cavs, they didn't really have real playoff success until 2007 is when they broke through, got to the NBA finals. So yeah, like that 06, 07, 08, like those 3 years, I mean, I think a lot of people my age really got into Cleveland sports at that time because there was a lot to be excited about across the board all year long, and it was like a special time. We've had multiple times like that since 07, but that was the first time, you know what I mean? All right. Big Birds Only says, who is currently your favorite prospect for the Browns to possibly draft next season, I assume? I personally like Drew Aller, or Lenore Sellers might be a close second. I am not on the range of people that like are disgusted by Drew Aller as a prospect. There are a lot of people who like don't want to touch him. I understand why, right? Because he does make crazy decisions with the football. I think for me, my favorite two right now are probably Lenore Sellers and Cade Klubnik coming out. Obviously, Josh Downs or Caleb Downs, my bad, Caleb Downs, right? Like those are my favorite guys coming out right now in this next year's draft. We'll see. I've heard a lot about Francisco Mendoza. I have to see him do it in the Big Ten though before I'm gonna get any level of excited. Yeah, I'm really just excited to see, because like who I like right now matters very little. I'm really just excited to see how the college football season unfolds and who ends up being the stars of that season. I think that's going to be something that's going to be really important to watch, because look, man, we didn't think Cam Ward was going to be the number one overall pick at the start of last year's college football season. We didn't really like Travis Hunter. People thought he'd be a top pick, but had no idea how far it would go. Would he win the Heisman, and what kind of crazy season he would have? So that's what I love about sports in general, is that you can spend a lot of time thinking about it and really do a lot of good work predicting things. But at the end of the day, it's not a predictable thing, right? This thing isn't rigged or anything. It's organic, and it's going to happen in front of you, and you got to adjust to it as it happens. And I love that. Luke says, how long of a leash do you think Gabriel will have until they eventually want to play Shedeur? They like when we do this, we're working off assumptions. And I'm not saying those assumptions are wrong. I'm just saying we have to understand we're working off assumptions. And one of the assumptions we're working off of is that the Browns coaching staff is in a rush to put Shedeur out there, right? They might be in a rush to put Dillon Gabriel out there. We really don't know at this point who they prefer, who they don't prefer. I would say there's going to be less room for error for Dillon Gabriel, given the type of prospect he is, right? He's a more pro-ready guy. So if he doesn't look pro-ready, then that's the whole point of him, that there's really not much to explore with him. Where with Shedeur, you can view him more as a project. But if you're viewing Shedeur as a project, you're probably not going to be super eager to throw him out there early in his career. So, I would just see how this one plays out, because I'm not sure. Dragon says, hey, do you think if JOK comes back at some point, him and Carson Schlesinger could both start for the team together, specifically since technically they're both weak side linebackers? Well, I think Swess will eventually be a middle linebacker. I think that's the hope for him, is for him to be a Mike, right? And I think they're going to try to do kind of what the Ravens did with Pat Queen and Roquan, but hopefully a more effective version of that. Think of it like Fred Warner and Pat Queen, whereas Swess can be that coverage linebacker, somebody who can turn his head around, robot, and also be effective at the line of scrimmage as a tackler. And then JOK can be a heat-seeking missile next to him, right? Kind of like how we used to play Taki-Taki. We would move JOK to a role more similar to that. And I think that's kind of how those two would play together. And then you would also you would also be able to be in base more often, because you're just so athletic at linebacker. So there would be a way to put them on the field at the same time, for sure. I truly believe that. Ninja Kyle says, will the Browns keep all the quarterbacks on the roster this year? Depends on what we determine as a roster. I mean, I think somebody's going to be on the practice squad, right? And the most practice squattable quarterback, I think, is Kenny Pickett. So maybe Kenny ends up on the practice squad, and that's kind of where he lives for a little while. But yeah, I think we're probably going to try to keep all four quarterbacks on the roster. I don't really see there being a real trade market for anybody to get drafted this year. Think about, and I want people to think about this, right? Whenever somebody says, oh, we're just going to trade Shedeur this year, we're going to trade Dillon Gabriel this year, that's never going to happen, because these guys were available in the draft. If anybody wanted to give up a significant asset for that guy, they would have just spunted in the draft that was a month or two ago, right? They won't spend a bunch of picks because they saw somebody look good in camp. Looking good in training camp, looking good at practice in general, that's not gonna raise somebody's trade value. I need people to understand this, right? Maybe if you have some of the most amazing preseason performances you have ever seen out of a guy, maybe that raises his stock, but I doubt it, right? Like I doubt it raises his stock to the point where a team's compelled to trade him. Like it's very rare that happens. But just because you're doing well in practice, I don't think other teams care how well you're doing in a team's practice, right? So you're not going to be able to trade Dylan or Shedeur before they play games, because why would anybody trade for them at this point? You can say, oh, Shedeur, he should have been a first round pick, but every team that can trade for him decided to pass on him until the Cleveland Browns took him at 144. So there's clearly not a market for Shedeur. The same is true with Dylan, right? If there was this market to trade Dylan to get value back that's better than the third round pick they spun on him, then why did he fall to the third round? You know, you're not going to change people's minds because of preseason clips. You know, that's not going to do nothing. So no, I don't think you trade Dylan or Shedeur this year. Maybe you could trade Kenny. I doubt that there will be a trade there, but the Browns will try to trade Kenny. And like, to the Browns' credit, I didn't think there was a chance they would be able to trade Josh Dobbs or anything, but they did find a way to do that. So maybe they can squeeze out a trade here for Kenny Pickett or maybe Joe Flacco and surprise me. But yeah, I really don't think they're going to be trading any of these guys this year. Maybe next year, right? If Shedeur has like a decent start to the season, when he gets out there finally, and maybe a team's willing to trade for him then, you know, or the same thing could be true for Dylan Gabriel. I don't know why the Browns would make that move if nothing is imminent at the quarterback position in the draft. But, you know, that could be a scenario. But like this offseason, no, I don't think so. I'd be very surprised. It'd be a red flag, like if they were to trade somebody. A red flag, either like the Browns saw something in him that's horrific, or you know, I don't know, something else is in play. But logically, it makes no sense. Dragon says, a second question. Let's say Kevin makes it to 2009. He's still the coach in a new stadium. Do you feel a dome with the turf field where you have to consider the weather half of your games changes the type of offense and roster you want, specifically in a dome stadium? Do you think Stefanski run first, play action style is still idea? I don't really think. I might be an outlier on this. I really think people overrate those kind of factors in football. You run the offense that is best for your personnel. You don't run the offense that's best for your environment, right? Like I've seen in Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay throw the ball like 50 times. Same thing with Pittsburgh, right? With Big Ben, where they would throw the ball a million times. If you have the personnel to play a certain way, you're going to play that way no matter where you're playing. I don't think the dome makes that change. I don't think you game plan for the venue. I think you game plan for the players on the roster. So me personally, it depends on who the Browns have on the roster, right? If the Browns draft a quarterback and that quarterback ends up being a top 5 guy, and you are a pass-oriented team now and you're going to throw the ball 40 times, it doesn't matter if you're in the dome or you're in Cleveland Browns Stadium, that's how you're going to play football. If the Browns end up being a super run-dominant team and that's how they get their success and they find a game manager who could do that, then that's how they're going to play. It's really about the personnel more than it is about the stadium that they're playing in. I don't think they've considered that at all, if I'm being honest with you. I wouldn't if I were them. Because even if you do consider like, oh, yeah, we want to build our team around our stadium, what if you don't get home field? I mean, what the fuck do you do all that for? You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of goes out the window, right? So yeah, I don't think that's going to be their game plan. But thank you guys for asking the questions. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.